Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries, plus napkins, plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.
Hey friends, want to grow your business faster and stronger? Wondering how to find and keep top talent? It starts with your culture. Insperity, a leading HR provider, can help your business create a culture that drives growth. Download their free ebook, The Future of Business is Culture, at insperity.com. With the right people, processes, and values in place, your company can realize its full potential. Visit insperity.com to see how Insperity provides HR that makes a difference.
Hey parents, Greenlight is here to take one big thing off your to-do list, teaching your kids about money. With a Greenlight debit card and money app of their own, kids and teens learn to earn, save, and invest. You can send money instantly, set flexible controls, and get real-time notifications of your kids' money activity. Set up chores and put allowance on autopilot to reward them for their hard work. Then learn about the world of money together. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.
New from Moultrie Mobile, the Feed Hub offers first-of-its-kind cellular connection and control for nearly any spin cast feeder on the market. When used with the Moultrie Mobile app, you can monitor feed and battery levels, run feeders on demand, receive alerts when feeders are clogged, and remotely adjust feeding times. The Feed Hub is ideal for anyone who maintains feeders. Remove the guesswork and save time by planning feeder maintenance before you drive to your hunting property. For more information, visit moultriemobile.com.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Jacob. Thank you for joining me. This is Hunt Detail. Over the past few weeks, I've been talking a little bit about some scouting efforts that I've taken on big woods, public land, to really fine-tune some spots that I've had success, either a lot of success or a little bit of success, and really try to increase my odds this upcoming fall. And as hunters, we are addicted to that sort of thing in terms of, especially those of us that are really passionate. We're throwing money at cell cameras and self-cam plans and new broadheads and new saddle gear or mobile hunting gear, whatever it is. And we'll do just about anything to try to increase our odds and increase our confidence in the field. And today we're going to dive into the moon and hunting based on the moon and identifying some dates if that's something that is important to you. But before I get to that, I did want to say thank you to all of you that are listening. Thank you to Tag Soup, who last week gave me a 5-star review. Really appreciate that. And someone else gave me another 5-star. It didn't show it for some reason on the iTunes platform, but hopefully I can figure out who that was and give you a shout out as well. That means a lot. It's important to just support each other. And if you find this content interesting, you can also go to the Hunt Detail YouTube channel and find much, much more content there that's very nuanced in nature. And you can like, subscribe, follow. Please share this podcast. Please share the YouTube channel, etc. But thank you again for your support. So let's talk about hunting the moon. And there are studies specifically from, I think, Mississippi State University, Penn State, I believe some out of Wisconsin, that show that there is no correlation between hunting, between the moon phase and deer movement. And so now I will say that I want to emphasize the fact that I just said moon phase. And so there are, I'm sure, hunters that use the moon phase that based on their experience, that have a lot more experience than me, have killed a lot more deer than me, that say you should hunt a new moon or not hunt a full moon, or there's more movement during a full moon or less movement during a new moon, or somewhere in between. On a crescent moon, it's this during the rut or during the pre-rut or post-rut. And we're not going to get into that dynamic of moon phases today. That's a different podcast altogether. What I'm going to talk about is what some term that the red moon, or it's overhead, underfoot, and I just want to bring a little bit more clarity to this a little bit, and talk about some dates that might be of interest to you in terms of if this is important to you. There is not a study or set of data on the quote unquote overhead underfoot moon or the red moon, and let me, I guess, clarify what that means. So the moon circles around or orbits the Earth, of course, and it does so in an oblong or elliptical fashion. And over the course of its travel around the Earth, there are times where it's closest to the Earth, and at those times, that's what's being termed the red moon, or overhead or underfoot. And obviously, the moon does, impact the tides, high and low tide, and there's other things that that movement of the moon impacts. Again, this is not moon phase. This is just the movement of the moon and the proximity it is to the Earth. Now, there is such a thing as a red moon or a blood moon, and this is a different thing altogether. So I'm going to sort of parse this out as well. So a total lunar eclipse is sometimes called a blood moon, and it has the moon turn red. And so you imagine you have the sun that is aligned with the Earth, and then on the other side of that, the moon is at a full moon phase, and there's the sun is essentially putting light on the moon as it passes through the Earth's atmosphere and turns the moon red. That is not what what we're going to be talking about today. That is not what we're referring to in terms of a red moon or what have you. What Adam Hayes and what others that are proponents of the red moon, what they're talking about is when the moon is closest to the Earth, again, as it's overhead, which means like it's in my hemisphere, or underfoot, where it's close to the Earth, but in a different area. So let's say a different hemisphere. So let's say if it's underfoot, it's really close to the Earth at this such time, but it's near Australia. If it's overhead, then it's really close to the Earth, but it's actually near me here in North America or the United States or whatever. So that's what overhead and underfoot means. And again, when they say red moon, it's not meaning that it's actually red. It just means that it's it's just a term that they're using that's being used. The same as overhead and underfoot. Now, this is public information. This is not proprietary in nature. It's like me, coming up with a different term for when the moon is the furthest away from the Earth, and I'll say, and I say that it has some impact on deer movement. Like, the moon is farthest at this time and this time on this day, and that is causing deer to move. What is being suggested with the red moon is that when it's near the Earth, it does in some way gets deer off their feet. So some of the language that's used is, have you ever seen a field that's normally empty full of deer during the middle of the day? Or some of the other verbiage that's used is, the Indians use this, which I think is interesting. I'd love to see the historical reference to the Indians using this. I don't know how true it is. Maybe it is true. And maybe all of this is absolutely true. So if you go to, you can certainly download the Adam Hayes app. You the Red Moon Guide or Moon Guide. I think it's $25, and it gives you all this information when it's closest to the earth, overhead or underfoot. And there are times during the hunting season when the moon is, and I don't have the app personally. I've used this information or tracked it myself off of a website. It's called solunarforecast.com. Try saying that 10 times. And you can find this information for free. So just go to solunarforecast.com and you can see the times when the moon is overhead and underfoot. And you punch in your zip code and you can just scroll, and you could go whatever month it is, it'll start with that month, and then you can scroll forwards or backwards and even go backwards in time to see if interactions that you've had line up with the quote-unquote hunting moon or the red moon or whatever you want to call it. So so during the hunting season, there are times when the hunting moon, I'm just going to call it the hunting moon, when that is closest to the earth, overhead or underfoot, and it's within sort of an hour of daylight or dusk, so sunrise or sunset. And so according to the Solunar forecast table, they actually prefer when it's sort of that is happening in the middle of the day. And so you'll see on the website that there are red days that, for example, Saturday, March 9th, the over is 11:40 a.m. So it's overhead at 11:40 on March 9th, and that is during the daytime, and they feel like, according to that website, that is a strong movement day because it's in the middle of the day. Now, personally, I believe that it might be more impactful if you look at those times where it's overhead or underfoot, closest to sunrise or sunset, times when we know that deer are moving quite a bit more often. And then if you want to look at times when you're doing all day sits, then yes, you might want to look at those dates where it's overhead or underfoot, where you have a hunter moon in the middle of the day in November, or whenever your sort of the peak of the rut happens in your area. And so that's how I would use this data if I were looking at this website and looking at, okay, how do these dates line up from this upcoming hunting season? And so I'm going to share some of those dates with you all. But again, I want to emphasize, I want to mention this, and actually as it relates to overhead and underfoot, I believe I've heard Dan Infalt talk about this, how he would feel like it's best when it's within an hour of sunrise or sunset as well. So I've heard him say that as well, and for me personally, that's how I would use this. I wouldn't maybe sit a September day at noon just because the moon was overhead or underfoot. I would definitely line it up on an evening in September or early October when I know deer are up and feeding already, and maybe stack my chips that way a little bit if I had to pick a day or something like that. That's how I would use this. But I do want to, sort of pull back and say that in the hunting space, there are people that really carve out a solid niche for themselves in terms of what they're known for. And so, like with Dan Infalt, for example, we know he is obviously highly successful big buck killer, and he is really in tune with thermals and with buck bedding. Now, if we were going to talk about scrapes or other, or growing big deer on a farm, or landscape management or that sort of thing, Dan would probably not be the person that we would go for. And so I just want to say that there are different things out there that are for us to consume, and they're nice tools to have in our toolbox, like some of the information I mentioned before, like the Drury's with DeerCast, or if we think of hunting scrapes, there's I think there's folks that are really in tune with hunting scrapes. There's other folks that are in tune with hunting rubs. We have all these different categories of expertise. And what I would say is, this is nice to know, but I wouldn't say that this is the be-all, end-all. As you design your hunting season for 2024, I wouldn't say, I'm only going to hunt these days because of so-and-so believes so strongly in hunting this particular dynamic with the moon. I hope that makes sense, because again, take this for what it's worth. There's been no correlation, as I mentioned, between moon phase and deer movement. Doesn't say there's not a correlation here, because it's a different set of data. But ultimately, let's take a look at some dates where the moon is overhead or underfoot in September, October, November, that happen to intersect with the sunset or sunrise. So the first date that I circled was September 10th. And honestly, if there is a correlation, this could probably, should technically work for other species, other game species. So if you're elk hunting on September 10th, it's, obviously you'd want to look at the zip code that you'd be in, but the zip code that I used on September 10th, the moon is overhead at 7:14 p.m. And that is within an hour of sunset on September 10th. Now, there are some mornings where it's underfoot. So what tends to happen is it's overhead one day, and then the next 2 days it's underfoot, or some variation of that. So you have about a 3-day span roughly where it's overhead or underfoot. So on September 10th, it's overhead at 7:14 p.m., and then September 11th and 12th, it's underfoot at 7:42 a.m. and 8:39 a.m. And then, so I circled September 10th. The other date I circled in September was September 23rd, where the moon is underfoot at 6:49 p.m. So, obviously, we all are very familiar with the feeding pattern of deer in September. And so a PM sit on September 23rd with the moon being underfoot at 6:49 p.m., that might be a great opportunity. Let's move to October. Now I've circled, it looks like 5 dates here. Early October, again, I focused on the PM movement. The theory here is that in the mornings, your bucks are sort of moving back to bedding, and it's difficult to beat a buck back to bedding, and it's also, you can disrupt deer if they're feeding early in these early fall mornings. So that's not necessarily a thing that I subscribe to. I just like to hunt, but I tried to target times and dates that made a lot of sense. So October 8th, 6:02 p.m. overhead. October 9th, it's overhead on 6:58 p.m. And then as we move to late October, October 25th, it's overhead at 8:45 a.m. October 26th, it's overhead at 9:29 a.m. And October 27th, it's overhead at 10:10 a.m. Now again, depending on where you're listening to this, that time is going to be different. So you're going to want to go to solunarforecast.com and punch in your zip code to get your exact time. But those are some dates that I would imagine line up regardless of where you are. So let's look at November. So our days are getting shorter, so our time frames are shrinking down. And so November 6th, the moon is overhead at 4:49 p.m. November 7th, the moon is overhead at 5:44 p.m. November 9th, the moon is underfoot at 7:03 a.m. November 10th, it's underfoot at 7:53 a.m. And then as we get into later in November, the moon is overhead on November 24th at 7:48 a.m. and November 25th at 8:27 a.m. And so I've killed deer on a lot of different dates. I remember killing a buck, I think, on November 7th. I don't know if it had anything to do with the moon, quite honestly. Who knows? But I'm going to be in the woods most of November anyways, regardless of these particular dates. But it's still something fun to look at and play with. Now, if you're looking for all-day sits, the moon is underfoot in the 11 a.m. time frame on November 12th and 13th. So, again, I would probably do all-day sits on those dates anyways. But it's just, again, something to sort of add into your own odds calculator in determining what dates are good for you in terms of this upcoming fall. But again, take it for what it's worth. I think it's it's fun to look at these. I think in a future podcast, I'm going to take a look at the information relating to moon phase, and we'll see how that lines up and sort of take what we can take from there. But hope you find this helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you again for your support. All the best.
Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries plus napkins plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.